Hey guys, Omni here. I just got finished watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre over on Netflix. This is the latest requel to come out in recent history. This one actually not going with the exact same name as the original, dropping the and pulling a Suicide Squad on us this time around. You know, erasing all the reboots, the sequels that came after the original, and like all the other ones we've seen with Halloween and everyone else, the Terminator, whatever. We're going back to our roots, going back to the original and continuing from there. And you know, we reacted to this trailer. I didn't have any high hopes or high expectations for this movie. I thought it was, at least from what we saw in the trailer, I thought we might get some fun, interesting kills and just have a good time watching it. And I will say, on that, it does deliver. I think the kills, the practical effects, the gore, the violence, is the best aspects of the film. On top of just how it looks. I think it's shot really well. I think it's really beautiful to look at a lot of times. The framing, the cinematography, the color grading. I think it's shot and filmed pretty well. I think where the film, though, falls apart is in the direction and, of course, the writing. This is the first script, at least on their credit on IMDb, for the writer of this film, Chris Thomas Devlin. They only have one other credit on there, and it's a film that's not yet out. And this is a director who's only really done one other feature film that was listed on their IMDb, and that was back in 2018. It's a film I've never heard of. The director is David Blue Garcia, and they were fine. I don't think direction was the biggest problem in the film. It definitely didn't help. It was a lot of the writing, because the story itself is kind of paper thin, and none of these characters, save for one, are really kind of fleshed out in any kind of manner whatsoever. They do the bare minimum to make them likable. I think they're actually pretty well acted. I've never seen any of the people in this cast before. I think our leads primarily are Sarah Yarkin and Elsie Fisher, who are our primary sister duo in this that centers around this group of teens that, well, I don't even say they're teens. I guess they're like college age. It's very vague on where they are. One of them is just out of high school or whatnot, but the rest of them are mostly young adults that are coming into Harlow to basically like buy up this ghost town, turn it around and sell it for a profit and kind of turn it into their own kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it, their own little colony, their own little town. Just kind of, they wanted to turn it up. Even one of the characters makes a little joke about naming it after themselves, but trying to create their own little utopia out in the middle of nowhere and just turn around and in a way kind of gentrify this small town that's been abandoned in Texas, or seemingly abandoned in Texas. And of course, things spiral and snowball out of control, and it is a blood fest. There's so many bodies because these guys are here to, you know, clean up this town, turn it around, flip it, and they've got a busload of investors on the way, so everything's got to be prim and proper and run smooth. So there's literally bodies in this movie that Leatherface is going to have a lot of fun with. And I gotta say, Leatherface has done pretty solid. Moe Dunford, who is the body capture for this person running amok, has a great physical presence and does a really good job at playing this older... you can even barely tell that this character is even aged, aside from the gray hairs. But, you know, that seems to be the case with a lot of these killers getting revamped. We've got a 60-plus-year-old Michael Myers running around, and I believe, if my timing's right in this, Leatherface would be about late 60s, 70s in this. And yeah, definitely doesn't show. He's pretty spry in his step. He actually is pretty in shape, considering his... does a damn good job keeping up with all these kids, man. Yeah, to say the least. The plot of this film is paper thin. The characters are paper thin. They make dumb decisions. You know, we even have Olwen Fouéré coming in here playing Sally from the original film, the original survivor who comes into here, and it just seems out of place. I mentioned some of my primary concerns in the trailer about bringing this character back in and the motivations behind it, aside from just being a character we would recognize, even though the original actress has long since passed at this point. They still brought the character back, and honestly, I feel like you could just have cut her out of the film and it would have just been fine. I really barely think she even served a purpose to the overall story personally. Across the board, I think the acting's fine. Again, I think the writing let down a lot of the people in this, as well as the story just kind of hanging on by a thread. There's also some social commentary that they try to bring into the conversation here, into the film, and a lot of it just gets confused in the way that it's handled, save for how it applies to one of the characters. I thought that was handled pretty well. But there's a lot of other conversations this movie tries to have. I don't want to spoil anything in the movie or anything like that, even though it's not much, but I'll let you experience it for yourselves if you feel like checking it out. But it just gets lost in the wayside. There are some characters in here that actually surprised me because it kind of subverts the direction that I thought it was going to go with one of them, where it could have been, you know, your typical stereotypical way that Hollywood likes to depict certain characters, and they took a different turn with it, and it actually worked out pretty well in the long run, and I actually really enjoyed it. I will say that I think out of any of the sequels, this is probably the better of some of the ones that have been made. I still think the remake was a pretty strong little adaptation to kind of reinvigorate it. It did start to go off the rails, and then they went back to the drawing board, went back to the original, rebooted, retooled, resequelized, all that stuff all over again, and just kind of went the wrong way with it. If we're talking sequels and not remakes and not reboots, I think this is probably one of the better ones, but that's still not saying much. It's really hard to recapture the lightning in the bottle that was that original film, and I don't know. It's still a fun watch, and I had a really fun time watching it, a really fun time commentating over it, a really fun time just kind of like, you know, sitting back and watching people fuck up. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. Did you check it out over the weekend as well? If you did, let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Feel free to join our Discord. We can talk about it there as well. Links to that and all my socials are in the description. Hope you follow me on each one of those. And if you want to see my full-length reaction, you can check it out over on Patreon, or if you become a member of the channel, it gets you access as well. And speaking of, before we go, I want to shout out to channel legends, Manny Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yori, Corey Scott, Margaret Grace, Mary Bradley, Nate Prouty, and Melita. Thank you guys so much for your support as always, and everybody else who's just been making this channel grow and grow and grow. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate every single one of you. But that's it for now. I'm going to get some sleep, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.